Hello everybody and welcome to Shenandoah National Park. We are out here on a beautiful, no longer moody day at Pass Mountain Overlook. If you look behind us in the background, the dark gray clouds have started to lift, the fog has moved out, so the clouds are sitting just at the top of the ridge line in the distance, but the sun is shining, sunflowers, some asters as well. So it's turning out to be a lovely day.
It absolutely is. Thank you for that beautiful description of the Pass Mountain Overlook. Welcome to week 2 of our fall broadcast. We are your host. I am Rain. Every Thursday, it's going to be live on Facebook and YouTube at noon, and a fall section of our website, so it will be there too. If you have any questions during the fall broadcast, please drop those in the comments. We're going to talk to our wonderful producers behind the camera, Tom and Luca. They're going to be throwing those questions at us, and we're going to answer them right here for you. But if you have questions after the broadcast is over, you can certainly ask those in the comments section. We're going to be monitoring it. So if you have any questions about fall or the park at all, we're going to be there with you to answer those questions for you so that you have your best experience when you visit.
Another great thing, so we are in a very busy time of year in the park. It's starting to get busier and busier, of course, as the leaves are changing, as the season is going forward. And with that, there are some special events upcoming as well. So not this weekend, but next weekend, starting September 27th through the 29th, is the second annual Art in the Park celebration. And that's going to be taking place largely down at Big Meadows and Skyland areas. That's being hosted by the Shenandoah National Park Trust, one of our several partner organizations. And then on the 28th is another special day, not just for Shenandoah, but for the entire National Park Service. So ever since 1994, the fourth Saturday of September is National Public Lands Day. So this year that falls on the 28th. This is going to be the single largest volunteer organized day throughout the National Park Service. So a lot of different volunteer organizations will be working on various projects. You can look online and hopefully find a project near you that normally would have an entrance fee is free next Saturday, the 28th.
Yeah, so we really hope to see you there.
Yeah.
And if you're in the Big Meadow before peak arrives, and there was actually a lot more color than I had anticipated, which was a really nice surprise. A number of trees that had the red Virginia creeper kind of making its way up the trunks of those trees and along the rock walls, which is always pretty cool. And I think I also saw the yellow from hickory is what I'm thinking. And that was just kind of a really cool pop of color and what was blooming kind of in the brush behind us and also along Skyline Drive. So if you all are coming for fall color, I think you're going to get just little peaks of it, just little it's kind of teasing us, I think, because it's there, but it's definitely not peak yet. But remember, the park is about 100 miles long and the elevation varies, and so that means that the fall color is going to vary. So if you're visiting this weekend or if you're visiting next month, you're not going to miss it. You are going to see fall color in some range of that. So definitely share your pictures with us. We are going to continue to let you know what we are seeing and posting those photos. And you can find those galleries on our website, and there's a link to our Flickr page where we are cataloging all of that, and on our social media.
Well, and that's kind of what makes fall so special, is it? Obviously, it takes place during the autumn months, usually starting around this time of year and then lasting throughout October, but depending on the weather of the season, the climate of the year, it's always going to be changing. So coming out, finding that special tree to you along the 105-mile drive, finding that patch of goldenrod, look down, look up, look all around, and try and find those awesome splashes of color for the next month or so.
Yeah.
But with that, we also have changes also to our wildlife activity. And we had the great pleasure this past week to actually record and interview one of our park biologists. He's actually our leading park ecologist, Alan Williams, talking about some of the changes that are happening with our wildlife.
Yeah, so let's take a look at that now. You're going to notice it's a much clearer day than it is today. Carl caught up with him last week. So let's go ahead and take a watch.
Hello, welcome to Shenandoah National Park. We're here out at one of the many busy overlooks here in the National Park today on a beautiful, clear blue sky day, not a cloud in sight. Behind us, we're out on a rocky outcropping. You see some of the distant ridges of the park, covered still mostly in green foliage. We have some blotches of crimsons and oranges starting to peek through for early fall colors. And then behind us, further to the wonderful view. My name is Carl. I'm a visual information specialist here with Shenandoah National Park, and I'm joined by two of the great staff here as well.
My name is Dylan. I'm one of the education interpretation rangers here in the park.
My name is Alan Williams. I'm an ecologist at the park. I work in the headquarters primarily.
So real quick, Alan, as the park ecologist, what's kind of your day-to-day role for Shenandoah?
I help support a variety of the specialists in the park, the botanists, wildlife biology, fisheries, and help them with a lot of tasks related to inventory monitoring and data management mostly.
Okay, awesome. Well, speaking of monitoring, so we are currently standing out again at one of the overlooks. This is Franklin Cliffs Overlook in the Central District. And this is kind of not only a beautiful viewing spot for visitors, but it's special in a few other different ways. Alan, would you mind telling us what's so special about Franklin Cliffs?
Well, for a number of years, we used Franklin Cliffs as a reintroduction site for peregrine falcons. And we would take falcons that were from nest sites in the Piedmont and the coastal plain of Virginia and reintroduce them to the mountains to help support the mountain population of peregrine falcons that took a while to recover in the 80s after they were reintroduced. Now the mountain population is still lagging behind the populations in the coastal plains, but it's a pretty good success story. They've been removed from the Endangered Species Act, and you can still see them in the park. All the ones that were released here were banded. There were some 160 over since 2000, and each one got an individual numbered band and a color band sequence that would let observers and anybody who retrapped them know where they came from.
You mentioned the coastal plain having more than in the mountainous regions now. Why is that?
We think most open areas, and so they hunt and kill and catch birds on the wing. So the coastal plain and the Piedmont of Virginia, they've also taken to living in cities a lot, so they're using a lot of city birds, but shorebirds and city birds have attracted quite a few. One of the limitations in the mountains are good, safe nesting locations, and so rocky cliffs like this are hard to find where predators can't get to the nest, so there were always just going to be fewer nesting in the mountain.
So, of course, one of the big things this time of year is we're seeing some great changes, not only to the fall foliage, not only to the park visitation. We're getting busier as the weeks go on, but we're seeing changes in our wildlife as well. And that's absolutely why we wanted to invite Alan on today to talk about some of those changes and how we might be able to, as visitors, as park lovers, go out and experience those wildlife changes.
So this time of year, many birds migrate, and from the littlest warblers through robins, blue jays, and up to the hawks and eagles. Most of them are breeding in Canada and the Northeast, at least in this section of the US, and about this time of year they've finished raising their young. The young have learned to fly, learned to hunt on their own, and have dispersed and start moving south. And so all these birds use their environment to their advantage and move south with the winds when they're favorable, and they use the topography to their advantage. One of the reasons why the park is a great place to come watch hawks migrate in the fall is that the ridges are basically oriented north and south, and then the valleys in between, and so the wind, primarily coming from the west, hits the mountains and creates this updraft. So the birds can fly using less energy along the mountains, gliding as much as they can, heading to the south. Different species migrate at different times, but basically from the end of August through November, you can come up to these overlooks and see migrating hawks. Also, all the way at the end of the park, where the Blue Ridge Parkway starts, there is an established hawk watch location called Rockfish Gap Hawk Watch. From here on, probably from the second week of September into the second week of October is pretty much the peak around here. And one of the most exciting migratory species, it's a very long distance migrant. They migrate from the northeast of the US all the way into South America, are the broad-winged hawks. And if you look for the peak broad-wing migration is in the second, third, fourth week of September around here. And they, last year at the Hawk Watch and Rockfish Gap, I think they had 23,000 broad-winged hawks that were accounted. So the record, I think, is somewhere in the 30,000 range. So some days, if you get lucky, there'll be just all these hawks just streaming.
So here's the question, Alan. I'm Ranger Carl. Assume I know what a bird is. It's in the sky, but I can't identify them, especially they're on the wing. I'm just seeing their silhouette. Yep. So my first question is, A, we have the broad wings. Who else is going to be migrating this time of year? But more importantly is, how do we tell the difference?
Great question. First, the best thing to do is to have a guide, some sort of guide, or either paper, an app, or a friend.
Sure.
Any of those guides.
I'll go hawk watching with you, Alan. That sounds great.
Any of those guides will help you identify what you see. Hawks are larger than the smaller migrating warblers, for instance, but having binoculars is helpful, and looking for, the main things you look for to identify are shapes. Okay. And there are some common silhouettes that can help identify the types of migrants. And there are three big groups that are loosely grouped. The accipiters, which are the woodland hawks, they eat primarily birds. The falcons, in American kestrel, merlin, and peregrine falcon eat a lot of birds, also hunt on the wing. They're noted by their pointed wings and relatively long tail. And then the bootios are the soaring hawks, like the red-tailed hawk, the broad-winged hawk, and the red-shouldered hawk. All in this area would be quite common. Now, all of these hawks species actually can be here year-round. And so you might see them in migration, but you could also see them in the winter as well. And some of those might be migrants that migrated from Canada, where they breed, and then winter here, where it's more temperate. The most common birds after the broadwing that we're likely to see are red-tailed hawks and sharp-shinned and Cooper's hawks. And they're similar, and they're also, because we'll see them more frequently, they're kind of cool. Sharp-shins are small, they're about the size of a blue jay. Cooper's hawks are a little bit bigger, more like a crow, between a crow and a raven. And red-tails would be bigger than that, basically. And they're, again, they migrate during the day. This is another thing that's, so songbirds generally migrate at night, and then they stop, and they might migrate hundreds of miles at night, and then they stop and they forage in the trees during the day. The hawks migrate during the day, and they are feeding as they migrate. So you may get lucky enough to, if you're watching a Cooper's hawk, it may be trying to hunt at the same time, and you may watch it dive into the woods after a small bird. So that is one of the reasons why we think they migrate about the same time these other birds, is because the food is migrating with them. So they migrate with the food.
You mentioned food there. I guess, are they like a bear trying to fatten up just before leaving, or are they just snacking as they go?
It's a little of both. Different species have different strategies, but many of them will use the end of the summer, this time of year, when there's a lot of food around and they're not in their full-on migration mode, to stock up. Okay. So their energy demands are low, sometimes they're not laying eggs, for instance. Some of them are molting at the end of the summer, in which case they need some energy also to grow new feathers, but as they get ready to migrate and they're in migration mode, they try to make hundreds of miles in a day, and then they might run into a storm, for instance, and then need to stop and then recharge for a while.
So that's kind of their pre-flight check, so to speak. They're getting their peanuts, sitting down, buckling up.
Seatbelts on, ready to go.
There you go.
The other thing about watching migration is that there are lots of other critters that migrate as well. We know that monarch butterflies migrate. There's some species of dragonflies that migrate, and those can make some quite big numbers as well, and sometimes are visible at the same places you're watching hawks.
So like even Rockfish Gap, for example, would that be something where you would see a larger population of monarchs passing through?
You might, and typically the counters there will making a side note.
Oh, wow.
So they're focusing on the hawks, but a lot of times in the notes, they're also capturing monarchs and other species that are migrating.
Sure.
So those folks going out and counting, and for us too, how are you getting ready?
I like to bring a pair of binoculars, something that lets you get a little bit closer and pick out some details, because it helps to get some of the details you asked about, what they look like. In a good field guide, you can get some of those pointers. You can get what's the plumage look like. You can get at the relative sizes. Again, finding people to count with or to watch with is really great, because you can learn tricks from people, because they might find it far enough away that you can have time to get your binoculars on it and then watch it as it goes by. At the Hawk Watch at Rockfish Gap, they welcome visitors. There's plenty of parking. Bring a chair, and you can observe the counters count, and they call things out, and so you can learn that way as well.
Well, that's incredible. This is my favorite time of year because of all of the changes, again, not just to the forest, but everything that lives in it as well. And I just have to thank you, Alan. You are my personal hero of the park. You have the coolest job. But what this means is, as you start planning your trips out to Shenandoah or out to anywhere where these migratory corridors are, pack your binoculars, get a field guide, or get a friend like Alan who knows what he's looking at, and go out and experience some of the incredible changes to nature this time of year.
Go ahead.
Isn't Alan an icon?
Oh my gosh, he's my favorite.
I loved
He's cool.
watching that video.
So cool.
Especially, I don't know if anyone noticed, and now I'm going to draw your attention to it. There was a spotted lanternfly walking across Dylan's flat hat at the beginning.
There were a few.
Yeah.
We're working on it.
Yeah. But that was really an awesome interview with Alan. He just has so much institutional knowledge and knowledge about
And passion.
everything, it seems.
And it's a cool subject to be passionate about, because, anybody can go, speaking of bugs, anybody can go out and experience the migration right now, so it's awesome.
That's so great. So again, if you guys have any questions, please put those in the comments. We are here to answer them. Luca and Tom are going to let us know if there are any in the comments. I know that Tony is watching right now, and I worked with Tony my first year at Shenandoah, and so he is in Germany, and I'm so glad that you were watching. So hi, pictures, and check out the peak fall foliage, or not the peak fall foliage, excuse me, just fall foliage.
Pre-peak.
Pre-peak, thank you. I don't want to misspeak and freak anyone out. It's not. It's kind of a muddy red, but it's pretty different in comparison to the vibrant reds that you see.
Well, and honestly, after the last few days of rain and a moody, kind of dreary day like today, it's a beautiful day to come out.
Yeah, absolutely. We think. Try my failed attempt. Do we have any questions, you guys? Well, that's okay.
Well, we will certainly be keeping watch throughout the day, even when the broadcast is over. So if you go back in and are rewatching or anything and have other questions, type them in and we'll do our best to answer them.
Yeah, we look forward to it. Thank you all so much for joining us today, and we are going to see you again same time and place. Well, we'll see where the place is. We can kind of move around with it, but definitely same time and same place online, Facebook and YouTube, next Thursday at noon. So see y'all later.
Auf Wiedersehen.